Are you going to stand right there?
Stand right there. Death by slide. Morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Steve, PM5HT, and back there in the middle is Mike, KJ5AJU. He's I'm gonna throw him under the bus right away. He's my elder for 3D. Anytime I have a question about 3D printing, I go to him.
Well, we have a guest here today who's probably over me from what I'm hearing.
All right. So today we're going to talk about some different 3D printer types. We're going to concentrate on the FDM printers, the fused deposition modeling, the ones that melt plastic. We're going to talk about FDM filament types, 3D printing CAD programs. There's a number of those out there. And object repositories, things that people have built and shared for the public to use. I have a few examples of some ham radio projects. And where would I go for a local 3D printer class? So the first type, and we're going to concentrate, is the fused deposition modeling. One, which there are a couple examples there from Mike on the table. Thank you for bringing those. We're going to talk about stereolithography, the digital light processing, and LCD. The second three are all resin. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Haven't seen your moment there. So the fused deposition modeling basically melts plastic and extrudes it through a heated nozzle. Uses a variety of materials. There, you can study on these online, but there's PLA, ABS, PETG, nylon, among others. Mike could probably list off about a dozen others. It's generally the most affordable type of printer. So if you're interested in 3D printing, it's probably the kind you want to get, unless you're into something that's very small, very fragile, very tiny type prints.
Yeah, a lot of people I know that have the resin printers do it for doing miniatures for things like Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop games and that kind of thing. The resin, you get a lot of high quality on in those smaller parts. That's primarily what I see everybody doing with the resins is minifigs and that kind of thing.
Yep, and then paint them up, right?
And then paint them up.
Yeah. It's they're good for rapid prototyping. The prints, which kind of surprised me when I first saw it, may have some lines in it. They're not as smooth as the other technologies, but you get used to it. The stereolithography. This is the first type of resin printer we're going to talk about of the three. It uses a UV laser to draw the image and cure the resin as it's drawing it. Prints polymer resins of different flexibility and strength, and produces very highly, as Mike said, highly accurate prints with fine detail. Downside is the resins can be more expensive than an FDM printer, and may also require some post-processing stuff where you've got to wash your print and stuff to smooth it out, that kind of thing. I have no experience with the resin printers at all. So the second type is digital light processing. It's basically the same type of printer. It's got a tank with resin in it, and it will project the entire image at one time. And the details of these are dependent on the resolution of the image. And again, it can require post-processing, just like SLA. And the third type is the LCD, liquid crystal display. Most cost-effective and user-friendly resin printer. And uses an LCD screen with UV backlight to project the entire image and cure it all at once.
Now, one of the cool things about the resin printers, what Steve was talking about with the FDM, is you could sometimes see the layer lines between where each of the layers go. With the resins, you can actually smooth the resin before you cure it in a
acetone bath.
Acetone, thank you. I was looking for acetone. In an acetone bath, and I'll actually smooth out all the layers on it. And then most of your resins are UV cured. So you print it, you put it through the acetone bath to smooth it, and then you put it in a curing cabinet to finish the process.
The acetone, it's just gaseous, right? Yeah.
Right. The upside to the FDM is when it prints, it's done.
Yeah.
You don't have any of that post-processing to be able to have something that's usable.
So the LCD is slightly lower resolution than the other two. And it's similar to DLP where it does the whole image at one time. Basically more pixels on the printer means higher resolution. But we're gonna concentrate on FDM printers today. And here's a few low-cost FDM 3D printers. Creality Ender 3, very popular printer because of all the upgrades that you can do to the mods and community support. Bamboo Lab, which one of our Elite has one of those. And FlashForge, Elegoo, and Anycubic. I basically took this list off of the computer store over in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
These are printers they carry, so I figured they must be common ones, right?
Top Micro Center.
Top Micro Center, yep.
Real quick survey, who in here has a printer and what do you have? Right, you said you have a print ship.
Bamboo,
I know you have
X1.
Bamboo. Who else?
Ender 3.
You have an Ender 3?
And I've got Ender 3
Yeah.
down. So key factors choosing a low-cost FDM printer. You want to look at the print quality. How easy is it to use? Is it a pain to set up? Do you have to level it every time? Those kinds of things. One of the things that I ran into was build volume. I had a piece that I wanted to print for a scanner, and it doesn't fit on my bed. So you look at chopping it in half and putting it together after the fact, or find somebody with a bigger print bed. Reliability and maintenance. How easy is it to fix? Yeah, is it something that you can troubleshoot yourself and replace parts? What kind of features does it have? Does it do auto bed leveling? Does it have a sensor to tell you when your filament is out, or does it just keep going through the motions? What kind of community support does the printer have? Is it something that's popular and a lot of people have that can answer questions for you online? And what kind of upgrades can you get for your printer? So here are some common FDM printer filament types. The PLA, which is probably the easiest one to use if you're going to start out making some things, print them in PLA. Get your confidence up before you graduate to the other ones. Then Mike will tell you what you're doing wrong. ABS, which was actually the first one that I started using at the Northern Hillsborough Library. They used their printers and learn from them. Stinky. It's a stinky type filament. Mike can tell you which other ones stink too. But you'll need a hood if you're going to print ABS. But ABS and PETG are more temperature resistant than say PLA. You print something PLA and put it outside, it may melt in the Texas summers.
And a lot of your ABSs and even some of your PETGs also have UV resistance built into them as well.
TPU, have you printed any of that, Mike?
Very little. To get TPU to work correctly, TPU is a flexible filament. So when your print is done, it actually bends and flexes. The problem with TPU is to get it to work correctly, you have to have a direct drive unit versus a boat fed unit. You can do it with boat fed unit, but it's a lot harder to get the print to layer lines is easy.
And then last on this list is nylon. So the only thing I've worked with are the first two, PLA and ABS.
Yeah, work with PLA, ABS, pretty much everything up there except the nylon.
And we got some properties to consider when you select a filament for your project. How strong is it? Can you bend it, hit it and stuff? Does it break? Flexibility. Maybe you need something that's a little on the flexible side. Durability. Is it something that might wear a hole in it after a while? Heat resistance outside Texas summers, right? chemical resistant. Probably not too concerned about that one for anything that I might make.
No, if you're printing stuff to go under the hood of your car, which I know people do print things that go under the hood of the car, that chemical resistance, the heat resistance
Those
are two big factors.
Thank you. Printability. That would be PLA. That'd be the easiest one to, as far as printability. What kind of surface finish does it give you? You know, is it smooth or is it jaggy? And is there any post-processing required for the type of filament? And then the toxicity of the filament. So something that you really need to consider, especially if you're going to print them inside in the house. I've been printing PLA without any problems at all, and not any. You can smell it a little bit. I think it's made out of corn, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So you smell a little bit of corn smell. But other than
Smells
that,
like popcorn.
Yeah, it does. You know, and the ABS comes in all different flavors. There are some that are so strong and pungent, you want to have a hood or do them outside. Reality has a series of ABS now that doesn't off gas at all. So you can print the ABS without having to have a hood with it. Okay. And it's pretty stable. That's why I do most of my ABS in is the Reality ABS.
so you're going to need, if you're going to draw your own objects, you're going to need a program to do that. Here for beginners is a list of 4 different programs. The one that I use mainly is Tinkercad. Use that extensively. SketchUp, I've seen and heard that one before. SelfCAD, Design, Spark Mechanical. I hadn't even heard of those. Have you ever heard those, Mike?
SelfCAD I have. I haven't heard the other two.
The intermediate Fusion 360, that's on my bucket list to learn that one. It's a pretty powerful computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing, and computer-aided engineering software. So you can do some quite a few things with that.
And the Fusion 360, if you're using it for personal use only, you can get a full-blown license of it for free.
They kind of lead you to believe that you've got to pay for it when you go sign up for it, but you don't. You can use it for free. FreeCAD, I think you use that one.
Yeah,
right?
FreeCAD what I use.
I've got a grandson that uses Blender, but he uses it for 3D animation and rendering. He did tweak a model that we wanted to print with that we got off Thingiverse. He found a Star Wars model and I watched him make that thing just dance. He was tweaking stuff in the model with Blender. And the advanced ones, I've heard of SolidWorks and CATIA, and the rest I have no idea on those. And we'll probably never ever use any of those. I found that I can do pretty much everything I want to with Tinkercad. You just got to get a little creative and think outside the box sometimes to get the object that you want. So what if I want to use something that somebody else printed? Well, there's some repositories out there. Probably, I would guess maybe the most popular one is Thingiverse. There's printable, it's called 3D, my mini factory. GrabCAD, I have used that one for when I'm working on PC board objects where I need a 3D object of a part so that I can render my board. And the last things, and then the very last one, if you don't take anything else away from this talk today, remember Yagi. Yagi is a search engine of the other repositories. So I put in a search of ham radio and got 10,000 plus hits of objects on the other repositories. If you just click on the links and they'll take you right to what it is you want that you're looking for. You can pick which one you like the best.
Out of all of those search tools, where did you find the most electronic ham radio things listed?
I didn't really make a comparison, but I would say it was probably Thingiverse.
Yeah, Thingiverse seems to be the biggest.
Thingiverse was massive years ago, I'm sure. It's
Yeah. Yeah, so they'll search that, search all the other ones, GrabCAD.
Well, the cool thing about Thingiverse, I'm not sure about the other repositories, but I use Thingiverse almost exclusively. is when you download something from there and print it, you have the option of sharing your print. So you can just, share your bill, what color, whatever you did with it. You can also mod it. Mod the design and put your design modification back out there on Thingiverse under the original person's post. So, for example, a lot of the mods that I've done on my machine came off the Thingiverse, and somebody will have taken, built something to put the Raspberry Pi under the bed. And then somebody will have gone back and said, oh, well, that was for the 3. I redid it for the mount holes for a 4, or the interfaces for the HDMI for a 4 versus what you had for the 3. And those will all be tied together on Thingiverse. So you can start off with one, and like I said, if you make a modification, you can repost it. The post goes as you still get credit, but it's tagged back to the original post, so it's easy to find all these little spins and alterations that people have done to things. And a lot of times I'll take some of my design ideas from those and go and spin something myself, just looking at what other people have done, spinning other designs.
I've taken 2 different things and put them together. And one of them was a filament feed for my printer that had looked like a horn to be able to go around the corner, feed the filament in, and fed that into a smart sensor that I built. So some examples of ham radio projects that you might undertake: antenna mounts, cable management, string reliefs, radio accessories. Sometimes it might be a case or a microphone mount, battery boxes, power distribution, operating aids, paddles, and keys. I did some paddle handles for one of the people in the club here. His broken, so he found one and I printed some up for him. QSL card boxes, probably not so much anymore. Everything's going electronic and that. Maybe a call sign display or on the air sign. Portable operations, you might do some things for a go box, mask clamps and supports. Digital modes, maybe you built your own hotspot, you need a case for it. And case for other Raspberry Pi projects. Or maybe you designed or built your own printed circuit board and you needed a case for it. You can customize a case around that PC board. So where can I get a class on this? Well, most of the local libraries are pretty good about having their own space. They'll have printers and stuff, and their rules and stuff vary between one library and another. I started out at the North Richland Hills Library. A couple of my buddies said they were taking a Tinkercad class, and I thought that sounds like fun. So I went with them. We had like an hour class, and I took off from there. They have what's called a maker spot. There'll be some pictures of that in the slideshow at the end of the slideshow.
It's like class with Corey,
Class with Corey, yeah.
mechanical engineer, librarian.
Yeah,
she's good.
pretty sharp.
Very good.
Talk real fast, but you gotta pay attention to keep
Gotta
up.
keep up.
She's rebuilding a VW.
Oh, so that's where I got my start.
You should print the whole thing.
The Arlington Library, they have makerspace with 4 or 5 printers there. And I actually used their laser cutter to cut a piece of plexiglass.
Okay.
And that plexiglass is on the Digipile here, got a little plexiglass cover on it. The other projects that have plexi on it, I just cut the miter saw and super glued them in. Irving Public Library, they got Make It Yourself Zone. Fort Worth Library, I read online that they had 3D printers in all their pub libraries. So there's online courses that you can get. Some are free, some you pay for. But going to one that a live class just to get started is probably a good move there. North Richland Hills doesn't charge anything for the class. If you're not a North Richland Hills resident, then they have a monthly charge for using the makerspace. It did initially.
Initially, it was handled by a very nice grant that would allow anybody in there. All you had to pay for was materials.
And once, it's not really expensive, I think it's like $10 a month. But when they started charging for it, and I found out I could get a printer for $100 bill, I did the math real quick and I could pay for it in less than a year. So that's what prompted me to get my printer. So up to your imagination, what would you like to create today? This is a screenshot of Tinkercad, the Digify that I have over here on the table. And I started out by drawing all the insides that were going into the case so that I can make sure everything fit. And this really stretched the what Tinkercad could do. It got to the point where you click on it and you wait. Okay, there it moved. You know, you knew it was supposed to do something. Like the little, they've got a what's there in the bottom stack of those 3 cards is a Raspberry Pi 02W. The second card up is a audio card. And on the 3rd layer is a display, custom board that I created for the push to talk circuits. And it's basically it'll do FT8 and be like APRS stuff. Yeah,
Michael, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm gonna unshare your screen because nobody can see that
Okay.
because the way the thing is set up.
Oh, okay. Listen, I'm not gonna be able to get it up there.
Not up there.
Okay, no problem.
I didn't know you were gonna do that, or we would have said that.
This was just the last thought, but no big deal.
so a couple of the parts I got off of GrabCAD, like the toggle switch in the back, the and the fan on the left. And you'll actually see at the end of the slideshow in the maker spot in North Richland Hills, you got that case on the bed of the printer. And I've only printed one of those cases. Everything fit the first time. That whole conglomeration of parts fit.
Steve does a prototype, Steve gets it done one shot.
One at a time.
Yeah, one pass.
Usually,
One take.
unless I need a test.
We'll knock out wood for you.
The 6 meter mocks and I did some test prints just for the pattern of the GI folder before. I didn't print multiple times. I did that one time after I got the pattern just right for the GI pole that I had. And then I found out there was another kind of GI pole, so I didn't make another test print for that. And it just extruded up and everything fits. So, but if you can print a little piece of it and test it, that works out quite well. Okay, I'm gonna start the slideshow and you guys can watch that and see if there's any questions. Anybody have any questions at this point?
As far as the speeds go, the printers that, in my experience is North Richland Library. Can't even remember what brand those were, but.
Poly
Poly
printers. Poly printers.
Yeah, and that's a local company, right?
Yeah, it is.
I will say one thing good about the poly printer brand that's out of Mansfield is when you buy the poly printer, they're expensive, but they send you files for every piece of that printer so you can remanufacture their price.
Exactly, the ones in the library often. A need for new replacement parts. I remember she'd print notes out for it. How's the run speed on these more affordable ones? I think the polys are well over $1,000.
They're slower. They're over $3,000.
But they're slower.
No, those are faster.
Okay.
That's a faster printer. But the like the Ender 3s and stuff are a slower printer. Mike has done some mods to his to speed them up.
Yeah, the thing I like about the Ender printers is the Creality Enders is they're using an open source version of Marlin firmware on them. And you can get an aftermarket, I say aftermarket, it's another open source project called Clipper that you can flash the firmware off of the stock Creality. And Clipper allows you to do all kinds of things with a $100 printer. You can add the filament runout sensors, which doesn't come stock on it. You can add the bed leveling. You can do harmonic tuning on it to where you put an X, Y, Z board on there, and it will vibrate the machine and determine where the harmonics are and actually calculate that in your prints to take the ringing out of your prints just based upon the vibration of the machine. You can also do heating element modifications. You can add cameras if you want to do layer videos of your print to where after at the end of every layer, it'll take a still picture and it'll build the print. So after the fact, you can go back and do a replay video. And that's how you see all these videos on YouTube and whatnot that are created. It's a camera snap at the end of every layer that shows the building process. You can add all of those things to a stock reality printer just by swapping out that firmware and doing a couple of interfaces. The other thing I like about Clipper that I need to do to mine, which I have not done yet, is you can actually eliminate the USB cable between your Raspberry Pi and the control board and go strictly UART off the GPIO request. So you can do everything internal without that external cable. Now the stock reality board doesn't work real well with the UART mod, but there are other control boards out there by Big Tree and Greach and a couple others that you can do that UART mod support that also do other things. And for something like the control board, you're thinking, okay, I got this printer, I spent $200. Well, now you're talking about replacing a control board. Some of these control boards are $30. We're not talking about a huge investment to be able to make these modifications. So I'm partial to the Crealities just because you can do so much with them after the fact when something you buy stock. The thing to the left of it is a Anycubic Cobra, and that one is running Anycubic stock firmware. You can't do any mods to it. And what came out of the box is what you got. It will do bed leveling, and it will do. It does have some vibration tuning on it, but there's not a whole lot you can do after the fact with that kind of thing. And then you have things like Paul's Bamboo that just work right out of the box with everything on. But you also pay more for that. Yes, but like Steve said, it depends on where you're looking for price.
Yeah, the bamboo printer was about $1,500.
Yeah.
But
The Creality Enders are run about $2, but once a year, Micro Center will put a coupon on for $100 off the printer. So you can get it and get a 3D printer out the door for $100. The stock Creality will do 50 millimeters a second. With the Clipper modification and some tuning, you can take that same printer. I push mine at 200 to 300 millimeters a second with a $100 printer.
And you haven't smoked the stepper motor yet?
I have not smoked the stepper motors. I've gone through quite a few hot ends and fans, but I haven't smoked the stepper.
There was a GoFundMe for the $100 one, before COVID started, and right around Chinese New Year when all that stuff blew out, they're just like, well, that's not. They were going to support dual filament, all kinds of interesting modifications, and I was in that. And never got my printer.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who came out with it. Last 4 months, a company came out and it's for anything that's Marlin and Clipper based. It's a head that would allow you just with the head by itself to do 4 color filament on the stock end.
Whoa.
And it's like $130 upgrade.
So would that be 4 different stepper motors,
No.
or?
It's the same. It's a direct drive, and it's the same driver. To answer your question, yes, it's got 4 different feed motors, one for each filament. So yes, it does. But you can also add add-on modules to it, and you can take it from a 4 color to a 16 color. It uses the same head, but it has daughter. I would call them daughter heads for all intents and purposes, to where instead of one feeding one color potentially to the main print head. It can feed from 4 different spools. So you do a collection of those 4 to the one head, and the full upgrade for that to go to 16 color. I want to say it was right around 350 or 4, but a 16 color 3D printer. I'll never have a need for that many colors. 4 probably is for me. But there's so many things that they come up with these things after the fact, and there's always people building and making modifications for them.
Yeah, there's 2 schools of thought in this. He's been talking around it. The one that you buy, pay more money for, put in your house, hook it up and print. That's what I got, because I got a little tired of all the tinkering. The other is the tinkering. If you like to modify and play, and this becomes and if you will, an avocation of, and you want to learn all there is to know about this stuff, the realities and these less expensive printers that you can do all the upgrades for are great. And that's kind of the main difference.
It depends on your requirements, you know, if you have the money and I've got this project, and I just want it to work when I send it to a print job and not have to do any of these modifications, doing something like a Bamboo or the higher end makes sense.
And Bamboo came out with a new one. It's not the enclosed X1 carbon, it's the A1 something. It's more like these with, it's open and it's way less expensive. I want to say $300 to $400, but I'm not sure on that. But way less expensive than the X1 carbon.
What you're saying is you have an old printer in a junk box somewhere as well.
I gave that one away, yes, but because I didn't have room. Other thing about a 3D printer, you need to have room for it.
Gotta find a spot.
These particular printers are what are called bed slinger printers. The X-axis moves on it. The bed goes in and out. Your Y and your Z are all stepper motors that control where the head is positioned, but the bed actually moves for your X-axis. Something like the Bamboo, the head itself moves. The bed is fixed except for the Z positioning. The bed will raise or lower as you're doing your prints, but your head will move on the XY axis. So something like a Bamboo, it takes up the space of the outside, you know, the shape of it, and that's it. With these bed slingers, you have to take into account that the bed is going to come off the back of it as it's doing a print if you're printing towards the front of the bed. So even though it's got a 2 foot by 2 foot footprint, when you're printing, it may be a 2 foot by 3 foot footprint because the bed's got to go back so far to be able to print to the front edge.
Lots of things to consider.
Lots of things to consider.
Jason, Ham Radio 2.0 just did a video.
I saw that.
Did you look at it?
Yeah, I watched it the other day when he was doing his live. He just got one and was setting it up to play with.
He got a Bamboo in it, but his didn't print everything perfectly.
None of them
He had some
do.
issue. He had some issues.
There is a secret about all these printers. If you walk away from them, they will break.
What about, is that the calibration, is it done correctly or?
That's
I mean,
all
I can see
there's.
do it needing to be dialed in.
Not one out of the box is going to be calibrated correctly. Stock end or go ahead.
And while there's always something, a butterfly sneezes in South America, it may mess your print up. That's just how finicky, even the Bamboo, which is the closest to set it and forget it, but I've tried to forget it and came back to a ball of yarn.
Well, that's always special.
Yes.
Well, and that's usually an adhesion thing. I will typically watch a print for the first few to make sure I'm getting good adhesion to the bed before I'll walk away from it. But that's just from personal experience. The other thing too is when you're trying to get that first layer of adhesion, there are different things you can do to the bed. Some people I know swear by printing on blue printer's tape. They'll put the blue printer's tape down, just like you would normally, not with the sticky side up, just on the bed, just to give it a little bit more of a rough surface for that first layer to adhere to. I'm a firm believer in purple glue stick.
I've used that.
That's what I do on mine. I do glass beds and I do purple glue stick. The reason that I do the purple is because you can see where you've laid down the glue stick. It's no different than regular glue stick. But as you're laying it down, you can see where you put your stripes of glue down. And as it dries per se, it fades. So it goes from purple back to clear. But just for doing that first layer, I'll put down purple glue stick on my glass plates every time. And I get better at each in that way. I've personally tried, there are things on Amazon and other places that are, they call it bed prep. I've seen a bed prep lubrication, bed prep oil, which to me just sounds funny when you're talking about 3D printing. But it's another type of glue that's on the sponge head that you lay down before you do your prints. And everything I've tried, some of those chemicals are 30, 40 bucks a tube. For me personally, I found the best thing is that purple glue stick on a glass plate.
Some use hairspray.
Hairspray is another common one.
Back to school supplies is the most cost effective.
Yeah, I'll go to Costco and buy the 42 pack.
You must be doing a fair amount of printing.
Well, I was just telling John this morning, I am up to 45 kilogram spools so far in the last 3 years of stuff I printed. So yeah, I do a lot more printing than I realized I do. But it's a fun hobby, you know, you can. I know people who go out and buy a farm thinking they're gonna make a ton of money on it.
Huh.
It depends. It depends. If you want to do this and get into 3D printing and really you want to make a stab at making money on it, the resin and doing the minifigs is where to go, because that's where people make the most money, printing out the little miniatures. I've got a buddy who prints Pokemon characters and he does them in glow resin. And after consumables, he makes $32 a miniature. And
Those are still a thing.
it's still a thing.
Oh,
He
it's
still
still,
gets demand. He gets special requests and, you know, people saying, I want a Charizard or I want a this. He does 3 or 4 prints a week and uses that as just his extra income. He paid off his printer, he's got 4 resin printers now, and he paid off his last one in like a week and a half. Printing minifigs.
What's the cost of a resin printer? Average.
So it depends on your build space. Your smaller ones you can get in for a couple $100, you know, and they're, I think, 30 mil by 30 mil print bed on them. Not 30 mil.
30 millimeters.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. That's really
It's a
small.
little over an inch.
Yeah, no, they're bigger than that. I don't remember what the bed size on. They're about that big. They're a couple $100 to get in on. You can do resin printers that have a 2 foot by 2 foot bed on. It just depends on, you know, what it is you want to do. So, you know, the printers are like cars. You can get in with the jalopy or you can get in with the Cadillac.
So when I picked up my printer, I got a spool of black PLA from Micro Center.
Mm.
And they worked fine, the whole spool, not a problem. And then I ordered another spool from them, and about every print I started out, the first thing that's filament would do is break. I got a hold of a bad spool from them.
That
So
one that potentially sat out too long, so it absorbed moisture.
it was sealed when I got it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sealed when I got it, and it went into a dry box.
So yeah, what a lot of people don't realize with 3D printers is pretty much all the filament is hydroscopic. It absorbs moisture.
Keep it dry.
You got to keep it dry.
or dry it.
Or dry it. Build a drying cabinet, you know, or keep it in a dry box. I burn through it fast enough when I open one. I typically don't have an issue with it getting waterlogged. And I say waterlogged, we're not talking about spool really weighing any heavier or the filament looking any different. But it gets just enough moisture that the layers don't lay right and adhere right. And you can have a perfectly good print, especially with the spool that's been set out for a while. The top layers of the spool are going to be more exposed to the moisture than what's, you know, under those layers. So you could have a spool start off really bad and then halfway through the print, you know, start cleaning itself up. I've had to go the other way to where the filament will start off really good and the first, you know, 15, 20 layers look pristine, and then it just gets to one little wet spot on it and the whole thing falls apart and I come back to spaghetti like Paul said.
Here's a picture of a dry box that I made. I made about 5 of them for schools and put some desiccant in the bottom, and it's got a meter in there to measure the humidity and temperature and stuff, and those work really well. Except for if you leave the box away from the printer and you've got a piece of exposed filament, first thing it does is break right there. So I got to where I just push it up and
Yeah.
keep the filament covered and stuff, and I just leave it in the printer.
Yeah.
I'm done because.
Do you have any problem printing ABS on your open frame printers, even though, other than the smell?
I don't have any problem with printing the ABS on the overtrims.
Remember you said that was the reality.
Yeah, I use Creality's ABS. They've got a whole ABS series that doesn't do the off data. And I printed on both of those. The one on the right, I can print it at 300 to 330 millimeters per second. The Anycubic Cobra, they claim they can do up to 400. I have a hard time pushing it at best 250 without having any adhesion issues. But they'll both spit out ABS when stock in, no problem.
Because ABS is good for an outdoor type of plastic, and plus, out of the ones that he showed there, ABS and PLA is probably the only ones that can be glued successfully.
Correct. You can do some gluing with PETG, but it depends on what kind of glue you're using and if it's solvent based or not.
Right.
So those are other things you gotta take into account. PETG will do really good for some outdoor applications. It's just a booger to print, from my experience. It's having that extra glass filament in it.
Coke bottles and things.
Yeah, it's just having that extra filament, that extra, additive to it. And sometimes it works great, and other times it's
stringy.
It's very stringy. It's very stringy. Like, I was talking to Steve before the talk. Every time I print PET G, before I go to another filament, I change the nozzle. I always have gumming issues switching from PETG to PLA or anything else.
When I'm at the library, they'd like you to use ABS exclusively.
And the cost difference is not that much. You may pay a couple bucks more for ABS over PLA. There's not a whole lot of difference of cost. When the printers first came out and they started doing these filaments, you would see a significant difference between PLA, PETG, and ABS on the cost of them. Now you've got so many makers out there that are making these filaments and whatnot. It's become so cost competitive that it's within a matter of a few bucks of each other. Where I find that you find a huge variant in cost nowadays is not between material type, but it's when you get into the multicolored filaments, where you have colors changing on the spool as you go through. Regardless if it's PLA or PETG or ABS, just because you've got 7 or 8 different colors in the spool, you'll end up paying sometimes half as much more for that spool just because of the color changing.
What was the brand of PLA you said to buy?
I buy pretty much the ABS. I do Creality. For PLA, I prefer Overture. Overture has become the brand I prefer.
And I haven't had any problem with that.
No.
I switched to Overture.
The Overture's been rock solid. That's the most spools I put for my printers have been to the Overture brand, and I've done their PLA in colors. I've done their PLA glow. I've got some PLA advanced on there right now. The advanced is like typical PLA, but it's got a little more durability to it. I'm not sure what they put in there as an additive, but it's a little more rigid. It holds up better well for prototyping.
And I'm using just the straight PLA, and you can get it on Amazon, which is convenient.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen
Buy enough
people,
of it, and you get it shipped free, right?
I've seen people at the library buy some of the cheap filament, and the biggest problem they have is the wrapped on the reel, and it stalls the print. And then you gotta get in there, feed a bunch off to get it untangled.
Right.
Get it back on.
Right. I've never had a problem with feed issues with the Overture brand. I've had one spool of Creality before where it was wound wrong, like you're saying. And what that will cause it to do is when it goes to feed off, it'll actually tie itself in a knot on the spool. Because of the way it ends up feeding under. It's hard to explain, but it's basically like somebody tied an overhand knot in the spool. And then of course it jams at the machine, it stalls the print, you end up with bad adhesion layers and everything else. And a lot of times when that happens, especially with PLA, it'll just snap. And if you don't have something like a filament runout sensor to tell you that the filament's no longer there, you could scrap a print real quickly.
They used to be over at the library, North Richland Hills, restrictive about the type of filaments you could use. I don't know, have they added anything different? It used to be, I think it was PLA only.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I personally haven't used any of the maker spaces in the area, so I couldn't answer.
Because they made us home.
I was gonna
Another-
say, ABS only, yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
And if you have an interest in
in
3D printing like this, just realize the amount of time it takes. We've talked about this and alluded to it, but the fact is, almost the smallest print will take somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes. And if you do a print, that size print, I did those. And if you do that, each one of those took about 45 minutes to print. So you have a big time investment in that. Like I say, when you walk away, it knows and it messes up.
And often, the estimated time is not the reality of the time that it takes to do it, at least with my experience. It starts off at 45 minutes and then next thing you know, it's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah. A fairly decent sized print can take 2 to 3 hours to print.
So that's a
So,
good example, like at the library, their printers are limited to 1 hour on 3 of them. And the other one, they have a no time limit on it. But they really want you to only do 2 hours on it. So if you have small things like I make, like the little 22-meter mount for power pole, you have no problems in that hour making a couple of them.
That time estimate is, are you talking about the KISS slicer that they use at the library?
Right.
Yeah, that one is not very accurate to start with. I'm using Cura, and it is accurate. Within just a couple of minutes.
on Steve's Moxon up there, that centerpiece is a 3D print. And I printed one for Chris Cotter. That took like 3 or 4 hours to print on the bamboo printer, which prints about twice as fast as these stock Crealities and Ender.
Yeah, I think about bamboo out of the box is what, 125, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And you can go to ludicrous speed.
Mhm.
I've never even tried it. It just doesn't work. I'm not doing production.
So it depends on what you're doing. This is a project that I did for a customer of mine who wanted to take an off-the-shelf blood pressure cuff that had the ability to download the data to the computer, but he didn't want them to have to keep plugging in a cable all the time. So what I ended up doing, where's the lights? Like,
Yeah.
You put the light switch on?
I could,
Never mind.
wrong one.
There we go. Thanks.
So what I ended up doing was recreating the blood pressure machine itself. Catting it up and extruding that, and then building a housing for it. And the best way I found to do it with the geometry was to print this, and then design a solid box to subtract that from that to get the initial spacing for it. So this is 10% infill, just because I was doing it to get the outside geometry. This took about 20 minutes. These are 35% infill, and the 2 pieces took 6 hours together. And then I created a dock for it as well, so that when they drop it in the dock, not only does it interface with the PC, but I also have it set up for wireless charging. So they're not having to plug a cable in to charge the battery internally and this, because of all of the channels, the grooves, I had to put in spacing for the grommet, and built inside of it, I actually have air channels on it to help prevent off the heat from everything else. This was a 14-hour print at 250 millimeters a second.
Ouch.
If I had tried doing it on a stock, I would have been waiting days
Yeah.
without doing any kind of modifications to it. So it depends on what you're doing. It depends on the size of the project, the infill, how intricate the inside of it is. Those are all kinds of things that will affect the print and the speed on it. So it can be a rabbit hole sometimes. You start off, chasing the white rabbit, and you're way down at the bottom of the rabbit hole, but it can also end up being a lot of fun for things too. A lot of the models I find on Thingiverse and whatnot are center sections for dipoles. And you'll find them done 7 different ways. It's you, ad block. What's it coming up with?
1,000 plus printable models.
Now, if you want to have some fun on Thingiverse, just go look for ham. You'll get all kinds of little 3D printable pigs you can do things with.
What I thought a few years ago would be a real interesting project is they have some holders for elements for a Yagi, so 440, 2 meters. And all you need to do is just have appropriate aluminum rods to slide in there. And there you go. Little more robust than a tape measure, perhaps,
Right.
but along the same line.
Well, Paul had the sample of the infant halfway that he printed out. This is a winder that I built a Ribacop antenna on. And I did all the CADing on this. The CADing for this took about 45 minutes to come up with it. This is at a 30% infill. That's a 45-minute print. So it's a fun hobby.
Another thing I'll let you know is the board that Steve produced for the power pole connectors.
Mhm.
We also made for our club a 3D printed case for a similar one, and we did it together. We did Steve's and that one. We actually have a guy in our club that's actually commercial 3D printer that has like 4 or 5 of these high dollar,
Mhm.
$10,000-$20,000 printers that does all kinds of stuff and lasers. And he's got a commercial shop that does that. So if that's something you're interested in, where I went to the library, it took me about an hour to print one of those. It took him, a few hours to print. I think he did 30 of them for us.
If you can do something like that, if you're doing bulk, there are also send it to them and print services online. One of the ones I've used in the past is Send Cut Send. They can do, based upon your CAD model, they can do cutting in all kinds of materials, plastics, metals, etc. But they also have a 3D printing service. So a lot of times with things like this, I'll prototype it on my machine, on my machines. But if I'm not 100% happy with the quality, if it's going to be for a commercial project, I'll send it out and have it printed. When you're doing these designs, you end up with an STL file, which is something tessellation. I can't remember what it stands for. But that same kind of file can be used for 3D printing, for laser beds, for doing laser cutting, but it can also be done for injection molding. And Send Consent will also do injection molding as well. So when you design something like this up, where you go and get it off Thingiverse, yeah, it's meant to be used for 3D printing, but you could also use that and have other things done with that same file.
This is a project that we did. I say we had help from other guys in the club. We designed a relay driver. We're using that for power control and stuff over at the main repeater site. And we're using it here to control a remote base radio. Yeah, so we built the board from scratch. Scratch design, and then I came up with, drew the case stuff. Cut a small piece of plexiglass and just glued that in. So we could see the LED lights on here. But small project, 1 chip on there. And some surface mount LEDs. So we have expertise for everything from starting from scratch, making the board, to making the case and stuff. We can now take the project all the way to the end.
Yeah, so one of the nice things I like about this club is we have people with various degrees of knowledge in all different things. And usually if there's something that we need to tackle, put a few heads together in this room and we usually knock something out. So
And I don't know which ones to ask.
yes, he knows that. Hi,
Travis?
Hi, Travis. So that's pretty much all I've got. Any questions, comments,
I will
thoughts?
say this, I have 360
Fusion?
on my Android phone. But I can't get to work, so does that go away, 360? Or use them for free, or,
No, I don't think so.
cause I can't get into my files anymore, it says log in and just blank screen. So I didn't know if they got rid of the Android app,
Not to my knowledge.
I might just need to update it.
You might need to update, you might just need to go do a password reset, just tickle the account, log back into it and see if it'll let you back in.
All right, thank you for coming.
Great job, you guys.
But we'll say that little, power pole, mount that I use on my, my battery box.